Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. This is going to be a new thing with the podcasts. From now on, instead of topics, I will also talk about pronunciation lessons in the podcast. I figure that most of you don't watch videos anyway, so why not just turn this into a podcast? Today, we are going to talk generally about pronunciation. In future videos, I'm going to go into details with these lessons, but for now, let's just talk generally about it. Most of the worry of second to third language speakers is, am I pronouncing the words correctly? And oftentimes, the answer to that is no. Our educational system is built on a traditional way of teaching. Most of the time, what you get in class is going to be just text comprehension, reading, and less of pronunciation. Some teachers don't want to correct because they want their students to feel comfortable. They don't want them to be stressed. Some teachers do correct, but maybe overcorrect, which oftentimes leads students to shy away from participating altogether. And that creates a problem in teaching and learning as well, right? Now, you could learn vocab, structure, idioms all the way to a C1 level, but once you go out there, interact with native speakers, you would notice the difference. You will notice that you are not ready yet, right? Maybe because you haven't practiced authentically. Maybe you hear native speakers pronouncing words in a way that you're not used to, and you feel discouraged. Hopefully this podcast is gonna help you at least build that confidence in speaking, as well as a set of rules that are going to help you see patterns in words. From now on, whenever you encounter like a new word, instead of just absorbing that word as it is, you will think about it. Where do I stress this word? How do I pronounce it? Do I emphasize the last part of the word or the first part of the word, right? I know most of you don't really give much attention to pronunciation, although you want to. I've heard some of my students say it's just an accent. It doesn't matter if you speak with a Moroccan accent or French accents. The point or the important part is that you communicate. Yeah, that's true. You could just learn a language, doesn't matter what accent you're using, and that's it. If the message is delivered, then that's it. And it's a win-win situation. But I want you to strive for perfection. If you learn something, you learn it well. And when you are at a level where you pronounce words very well, your intonation is on par, stress is on par, you are going to have a huge boost of confidence. Something that I experienced myself. I remember back in the days, I used to have a very terrible pronunciation. And then I couldn't speak because I was afraid that if I try to speak, I'm going to mispronounce certain words, right? And that like slowed my progress in learning, right? So what I started to do, I started to absorb this content about pronunciation. I was so laser focused on pronunciation to the point where I had to learn day in and day out. And eventually I got a pattern. Really, now when I look at words, I see them differently. Let's look at a very simple example. Most people when pronounce the word cat, right? They emphasize the consonant. It depends on your native language. If your language emphasizes the consonant, you are going to try to emphasize the consonant. You are going to give more weight to the consonants. In English, the emphasis is always on the vowels. The vowels take all the weight of your pronunciation. So when you pronounce the word cat, the emphasis is on a, right? Not on k, cat, right? That's something to notice again with our pronunciation, the emphasis. Again, look, spot, spot, spot. Notice again, far, man, man, sit, right? You might not see it clearly, but I want you to try to pronounce, take a list of words that are, start with short words for now, right? And try to emphasize the vowel sound in that word. For example, tough, tough. The emphasis is on I want you to think about it this way. I want you to pronounce the consonants as if you are tiptoeing over the consonants. But when you pronounce the vowels, I want you to give more emphasis. I want you to do it as if you are stomping, like walking loudly, basically. That's a part. That's something to think about, right? Or again, take a list of words for practice. Take like a list of words. 10, 25. You can start small and then get better. And you can start small and later on maybe you can change that. It is important that you do the practice because theory is important, yes, but what's more important is the practice. You can know something, but when it comes to execution, you might not be able to do so. And language is all about execution. It's all about practice. If you practice a language long enough, you will be good at it. If you don't, you just forget about it. Something else I want you to think about is connecting your speech. Native speakers don't just speak word for word. That's going to be very robotic or monotonous. What I want you to do, I want you to connect. There are a lot of rules when it comes to connected speech, but we will look at one for now. Later on, we can talk about all of them, right? So for native speakers, if you have a lot of vowels together, right? For example, a word ends in a vowel sound and the next word also starts with a vowel sound. So what native speakers do, they try to insert a consonant between those vowel sounds to make the pronunciation smoother, especially if you're speaking rapidly, right? This does not, if you're speaking slowly, you might not use that connection, but most of the time, if you're speaking very fast, you need to do that connection, right? Look at this example, right? Look at this example. You and I. You ends in oo sound, right? And then the following vowel sound is eh, right? When you pronounce a vowel sounds and your lips around oo, o, or ow, your lips around, slightly around when you pronounce those vowels, and the next word starts with the vowel sounds, try to insert like a W, like a W sound between those vowel sounds, right? So instead of saying you and I, you win, you and I, you and I, right? So notice here I also added another structure, you and I, right? Notice here we also removed the from and, right? In English, the and the te most of the time they are gonna be removed in rapid speech. Te in negation like doesn't, and the as well, right? So here, instead of saying you and I, the structure is gonna change again in rapid speech. It's gonna change to you and I, right? Notice how fast it is to say you and I. You and I went to the shop. You and I went to the shop, right? You and I went to the shop. Instead of saying you and I went to the shop, you and I went to the shop. Compare those two sentences and notice that the second one, you and I went to the shop, is very, very fast. Again, this is another rule to show you how you might hear like a native speaker say you and I, and you might not know, you might think that you and I is like a word, like all of them are connected together. But in fact, it is not a word. So these are words that you know, but pronounced differently, right? Again, because they are clustered together. Hopefully, this gave you an idea about pronunciation rules and how they affect your communication, your hesitance to speak in front of native speakers, your inability to understand them, your ability to speak up, to be confident in certain settings, right? Again, once you grasp or have a good idea about these rules, later on, you don't need to think about them. They are going to become internalized, basically something that you don't need to think about to do, right? Same thing for math. When you learn math, you don't always think about the rules when you do certain equations. It just becomes internalized, so to speak. All right. Thank you for listening. See you next time.